and welcome back. Welcome back to Dwayne Cotton's Build America. Today we have a special guest, and this is Ken, our first guest in the studio. Everybody else has been on phones.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different to be
History
able to,
breaking.
History breaking ground. Yeah, this is today, and welcome to the Richmond market. I really appreciate you guys listening. Our guest is a real estate investor, and we're going to let him tell his backstory. But he started a few years ago, and I have personally bought, I think, 5 houses from you this year, Antonio. Our next guest is Antonio Edwards.
How you doing, Dwayne? It's a pleasure being on this show today.
Hey, listen, I think we met whenever I looked at a house in Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
There was a house that was on the market there, and I found it and looked it up, and you and I gotten to know each other from that deal. And I think how many houses? 5 houses this year?
About 5, yeah. And counting.
Yeah, it's counting. I was going to ask you when are you going to bring me the next one because we're running out of inventory. One of the things that we do, I'm a builder by trade. I think maybe get that talking earlier. And what we do is we buy and sell houses, we build houses, we renovate offices if you have an office building. But Antonio is one of the guys that'll bring us a lead. It's hard to be a builder / renovator and to actually improve these houses and find them. I mean, you have to have a staff because that's finding a good house to buy. And when we say a good house to buy, we mean houses at a discount, houses that someone's inherited or they've rented for years and they're ready to unload, quite frankly. It's a full-time job to find a house like that. And Antonio's one of the guys that'll go out and find those houses and bring them to someone like me. So you want to tell us, when did you get started?
Well, I got started in 2009. It's been about almost 6 years now, and I tell you how time's fly, Dwayne. I mean, it's been an incredible journey through the real estate investing business. I mean, I feel like every real estate deal is a learning experience, no matter how many transactions you do. When I started my first deal, what everybody goes through in their head was fear. Man, how am I going to close this deal? I didn't have any money at the time. My credit wasn't that great. And I can tell you the power of a mentor. I'll just tell you a little bit about my background. I started, just like, average American, working on a 9-to-5 job. Actually, I had 2 jobs. So it was more than, technically more than a 9-to-5. It was like a 9-to-9 type of job. And I was a truck driver. I was working truck driver for literally 7 years. They started me off as a truck driver, $6.50 an hour. I remember that.
Where'd you spend all that money?
I needed money for bills still.
I hear you.
Bills, but $6.50 an hour, Dwayne, and it was just credible because it was a rat race, and I was a single dad, and I was delivering. I was a truck driver delivering copier machines, and if anybody who hasn't seen me before. I'm not that big, so I'm delivering these huge copy machines.
So the copy machines were delivering you?
Delivering me, exactly. But just fast forward, and I was working there 7 years. 7 years later, they gave me a total of $1.50 raise within that 7 years. So I was making $8 an hour 7 years later.
Wow. And so you realized then that lifestyle. And nothing wrong with making that, but in your particular case, you wanted more out of life.
I wanted more out of life.
And so where did real estate and you wanting more out of life merge?
That's a great question. A year prior to me leaving that job, I had somebody introduced me, my mother introduced me to the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
There you go.
And that was a light bulb.
That's a good read. And so you got that book and you actually read it, because a lot of people get them and they use them for they'll use a book for a bookend on their coffee table. It looks nice. Hey, look at my latest book that I have, but maybe get 2 or 3 pages in it and quit reading it. Right. What made you read the entire book and then take action?
Man, it's fun. It's funny because I hated books before that book. That was my first read of a full book,
cover to cover.
Cover to cover. And if anybody never read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I highly recommend that book. I'm sure that book probably changed a lot of people's lives and gave them a paradigm shift of a different outlook on life.
Well, I hear a lot of people, they'll reference a book like that. And, one thing I think that Rich Dad, Poor Dad and I'm not as well versed in it, I think, as you are in the book because it's been a while, and I didn't read the entire thing, so I'm telling on myself. Maybe that's why I'm on wholesaling houses and still building them. But one of the things that I notice is that motivation, and nothing wrong with motivational speakers and motivational books, but motivation is a state of mind, and it's just like being happy or being sad. They go and come. Where Rich Dad Poor Dad is more of a strategy. Okay? You're teaching a strategy, and strategy is here to stay. And so it tells you, you put yourself on a path to success. I mean, so what am I going to achieve in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? So you've taken the points of that book and you've applied them to your life. And then what happened? When did you? What happened when you went from the book to your first deal? What was the story there?
Well, for my first deal, I mean, that was years later. But it gave me the light bulb that real estate was possible. I didn't even think about real estate then. I mean, I knew about real estate, but when I thought about real estate, it was like, you needed money, you needed credit, you need thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars, to just get into real estate. But it opened up a door for me to let me know that it was a realm of possibility in that niche. And, a couple years later, I met a mentor, and he actually walked me through my first deal. And I just tell you the power of a mentor, Dwayne. I mean, it's nothing like the power of a mentor because, they can block those huge fear blocks that you have and alleviate, the process for you and shorten your learning curve. With my mentor and reading, Rich Dad Poor Dad, at the time after that I read Think and Grow Rich, and I had, some, a little knowledge of, entrepreneurship.
And then real estate was something. I mean, to me, I like houses. I like the different architectural designs. I like an investment that I can open and close a door on.
Right.
I can drive by it if I want to. I can insure it. So how did you find your first deal?
That's a great question. With this mentor, I met him, just to give you a little bit about that. I met him one day. He was driving in my neighborhood. He had a We Buy Houses truck, just cruising. And, by me reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, I was like, man, let me go and stop this guy. So
what's he about?
Huh?
I was like, what was he about? What's his story?
Yeah, his name is Chris Haskins. I think I always shout him out and through my stories, and I flagged him down. He stopped. I was like, hey, I was like, so you buy houses? And he was like, yes. He's like, I buy houses, and he gave me his business card, and he was like, do you have any houses? I was like, no, but I want to learn how to flip houses. And he gave me his card. He was like, hey, you got any houses? I have some cash. I'll buy a house from you. And so what I did that following day, I called him and set up a meeting. And I was actually nervous because I didn't know what the heck I was talking about as far as that niche. So we met at Starbucks, and what come to the conclusion is that we had a lot of things in common. And as far as we both love music, the same type of music that I used to be. I wanted to be a music producer at the time. That didn't work out. And what we did, he was like, you know what? I'm gonna take you under my wing. So what he did?
Houses.
You start buying houses and flipping houses. So what he did, he said, how about this? He said, he said, how much money can you spare? I said, I got $200. What can you do with that?
You could buy, let's see, a faucet, doorknobs, a welcome mat. Now you need the house to go with it. So you actually you fast forward. You found your first house to buy, and
yes.
And you invested what little bit of money you had, and I guess more of time than anything, maybe. And then so when you bought this first house, I mean, what I guess did you sell it? Did you wholesale that one, or did you flip it to someone like or flip it yourself, or wholesale someone like me, or what was the story?
Yeah, my very first house, I never forget. That was an interesting story. It took about, once I got the property in the contract, it took about 5 months to close because it had title issues. That's something that they don't teach you in the book, by the way.
No. That's the sausage making part of this business.
Yes.
A good attorney.
My thing, I was just licking my fingers because it was a potential $12,500 profit.
Now this is someone making $8 an hour.
Yes.
So $12,000 for
Mhm.
someone that's making $8 an hour is huge. I mean,
Oh,
12,000 is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but I
yes.
mean, then it was like millions. It felt like
It felt like millions. It felt like I can go buy a nice little Beamer or something.
get it from the lot, the used
Yeah.
lot. But hey, you know what? That's your step. You know, one step
Right.
before. But $12,000. So all right. So you sold the house
Yep.
after you finally got it. So after about 5 months, you got it closed.
Got it closed. Yep. They the title company they cleared the title issues. It was 5 heirs attached to that property, and each of those heirs had child support judgments. They had some liens here, hospital stuff here, and it was a tough time. But through the grace of the man above, I got that property closed, and I needed that money at the time. So $200 turned into $12,500.
Right, and you did that. So you sold it to an investor.
I wholesaled it using without owning the house, and I wholesaled it without using any of my credit.
So basically, you got the house, and how wholesaling basically works, and then there's a lot more involved in it. But when you find a house, you put it under contract, you make the contract assignable, which means you can give it to someone else can buy it. You put a finder's fee or assignment fee on that,
Yes.
and then when it goes to closing, you were never really involved in the closing. You just got a check for being the broker of that deal, and I don't
Yeah.
mean like real estate broker. I mean the individual finder of the deal.
Yes, and I tell you, I still think in the real estate realm as a whole, umbrella, wholesaling is still an untapped niche.
It is well, you know, and when you got started in 2009, I mean, you got started in the bottom.
Yes.
So I would imagine that
Yes.
took a little courage getting in the real estate market. When everybody was running for the hills, you were jumping in.
I know.
Of course, I mean, you felt like at the time you didn't have anything to lose,
I didn't because I didn't know about the boom.
right? And you know, well, what happened to me in 2004? We got started. We ran this thing up, and you know, it was never going to end. Of course, I always felt I had a lot of smart people around me that quit buying real estate in '07, and my little voice said listen to them, but I kept on doing it. And we were popping up the new houses, and we were caught in '08 with a few houses, and we lost a ton of money. And I never like to, I don't brag that we ever lost money, but I'm also honest, and that this business can bite you if you're not careful. And I don't care if you're in a good market. You know, real estate to me, you make money in real estate when you buy it, not when you sell it. So if you
Yes.
buy it right, no matter what you do, providing your budgets are close, you're going to make money in the deal.
Absolutely.
So you got started, and I was still on the sidelines, still trying to recover from our losses. So you were getting in it. So you've got an advantage over someone that is quote unquote a seasoned investor. That now do you ever look at there's a disadvantage the fact that you haven't seen a bottom? You didn't go from the top to a bottom. I mean, you got started. You were making $8 an hour. You got started in that real estate market. You
Right.
didn't have anything to lose, but now you've done very well for yourself.
Yeah, I actually like the time frame that I came in because I came in through a tough time where it allowed me to go through the challenges of the market where most people was tapping out. I was coming in learning how to. I feel like that time if that time like from what I hear in the boom, you might want to correct me if I was wrong. If I'm wrong, Dwayne, but in the boom, I felt like you didn't have to market for properties.
You didn't. What you had was you were at near the end of the boom. We were paying more for the property, sort of like now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarity. We're paying more for them on the buy end, but we weren't able to get that extra money on the sale end because you're near the end of the boom. Prices did start to correct a little bit with the beginning of the financial pullback, and prices actually then dropped pretty good.
Right.
One thing about real estate investing that I don't think some people give us all good investors a bad name. You and I think, look at real estate as the same way as we're here to a win-win situation. We're here to do a deal and make money, but we're also here to get people out of a negative situation without
Absolutely.
blowing their credit up or
Yes.
whatever. You want to hit on that a little bit? How do we help some people unload their problems?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you come across every person you come across as far as buying their house outside of the banks, but it's like private for sale by owners. They're in the bind, you know, whether they need cash right away or maybe they want to get rid of a property because somebody passed away and they no longer want that burden above their head. Or some people are relocating to another state, and you know we've become a solution to their problem, you know, by giving them what they need.
Right.
whatever the case may be.
And you're not, you're not harassing people and banging on doors saying, "Hey, sell me your house." You're advertising, saying, "Hey, I buy houses,"
Yeah.
and if you need, and if they call you,
Yes.
then that was an action they called you, and that's what I look at. I like everything being a win-win.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's been situations where we've helped someone out, pay a little bit of, a money to help them move, for example, because they were going to lose the house to the bank. Period. I mean, that was the one thing that wasn't going to change. How they sold their house did.
Correct.
And selling it to us is what changed. So we buy this house, we help someone out, and now have you flipped a few houses yourself, or do you just mainly wholesale?
Now I do it all. I mean, wholesaling is. I mean, I feel like as an investor, real estate investor, we're all transaction engineers. So that's the goal, to be a transaction engineer, to
Right.
do not just do one thing. Wholesale, like you said, you do new construction, you do rehabbing. I'm sure you got some buy and holds as well, and
One. And that's it. Yeah, we're trying to unload everything we can and keep buying this stuff that needs our help.
What I'm liking right now is I'm liking the Airbnb thing. That's something I'm tapping into. That renting out to these tourists, especially by me living in Orlando.
Right.
There's a lot of tourists in, and I feel like that's going to be the future gold mine, and I want to get into it before it gets booming.
Yeah, Winter Haven is a nice place. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
Winter Haven or Winter Park.
Both of them.
Yeah, both. Which is, I think, the one founded by Andrew Carnegie and the guys, the big industrialists. I think it was Winter Park.
Winter Park. That's a great area.
Yeah, it's really nice. I
Yeah.
saw a couple of that. See, I love looking at the old houses. I like the story. We were talking last week about a 125-year-old hardware store. Their building tells stories. And these old houses that I like flipping, they tell stories. But a lot of the houses we're buying are maybe 15 years old, 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily, antiques. I mean, these are just houses that were built in the 70s, and you just need to update them. So part of what I'm doing is I'm looking at a house that I've used a term lately, and Ken and I were just joking. I said, I don't know if I thought of this word. I haven't seen it. It's millennialized.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking these old houses and millennializing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm basically, what does that mean? That means tearing out the walls that divide, rooms, living room, dining rooms, clearing this, making a house a great room, making it open, and putting in a lot of the latest and greatest in USB ports over smart thermostats, so you can control it from your phone. You can control some of your lights from your phone.
Yep.
Kind of making this house more appealing, and look at it as recycling houses, and not just renovating. I think there's a difference.
I get what you're saying.
Not
Cutting and pasting.
now, do you look for any age house, or you just look for a house that's got a good spread as far as the market?
Well, I look at both. I mean, to feed my family and stay in business, you got to have some type of decent spread on it. But I go into low-end areas if the numbers are right. As far as first, if I go in a low-end area, I'm going to look at, okay, if this house was built in 1920, 1930, is it in decent shape?
Right.
If it is in decent shape, those are actually gold mines.
Was it maintained?
Yes,
over the years?
maintained, because if you buy a 1900, 1920 house and it's a crap house, a lot of those towns, especially in our market, they're not on buildable lots because they built them so close.
They're non-conforming.
They're non-conforming lots, and so if they're looking like tear downs and they're on a non-conforming lot, that's not a deal to a typical investor.
Right, and then not naming any neighborhoods, but you'll actually, you said buying in a bad neighborhood.
Yes.
Part of what you're doing also is you're planting that seed to help turn a neighborhood around.
Correct.
So part of what we're doing is fixing these neighborhoods. I mean, if you take where everybody's running out, it's just like the real estate market in '09 when you're running out, somebody needs to run in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of rescuing the real estate market. So if you're going into an area, it's hard for you to change it culturally, but if you can go in and fix up one house, maybe you inspire a neighbor or two to clean their yard up and to do a little work, and then that snowball effect changes. So real estate investors do play a big role in transforming neighborhoods that's sort of been forgotten. You're
right. And I see a lot in our market, Dwayne, in the Virginia market. A lot of us investors, I've experienced myself in this, is we're going into the low end areas in those conforming lots. Those conforming lots, we either finding either vacant lots, which is a vacant lot is a piece of land with no property on it, or we're finding properties and knocking them down or tearing them down and building new construction. I actually have one we just finished recently in a low end area in Norfolk, Virginia, and that's the trend right now. We're going in these low end areas and finding these conforming lots and building new construction on them. So we're actually making the community better.
Yeah, because some of the houses I bought from you, those areas are really dried up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can't find a house with a good spread in those
Yes.
areas. So,
Yes.
look, if you're looking to get into real estate investing, it really is it's fun. You can make money at it. You can also lose money at it. So you've got to be really careful on what you buy and when you buy it, and just do your homework. Antonio, you want to give your website out, or you have a free CD, right?
Yeah, I do. I have a free CD. Go check out my free CD. I talk about real estate investing. It's REIRichandFamous.com/free CD. That's
Awesome.
REIRichandFamous.com/free CD.
And then you can also go to my website, which we mentioned often, DwayneCotton.com, and we will link to that later today, and we'll have your site up there. And so that if you need to go through our site to find it. Anyway, it's been great talking to you, Antonio. I'm glad you came in. Sorry, this is the second week in a row that a plane has caused our guest to be late.
Those darn airplanes.
Can I talk about my podcast real quick?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a top-rated podcast on iTunes, and please check that out. I have some top real estate performers that I interview on my podcast, and Dwayne is going to be up there soon.
Awesome.
But just go to REIRichandFamous.com, REIRichandFamous.com, and you see the podcast tab, and subscribe to that podcast.
Well, Antonio, thank you very much. I'm going to wrap some business up here, but I appreciate you being here today, and glad you made it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Ken, one of the things in real estate that I look at is we're problem solvers. I mean, we really are, whether it be changing a neighborhood, trying to transition a neighborhood, or fixing one particular house. A particular house that Antonio sold me was a very nice neighborhood, and there was this one house. You remember you seen the Addams Family, show that came on, and it was the one house that looked 100% different than the other ones in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the exact opposite. That was the house that we bought, and we were able to fix that house up. And one of the things that we liked was the neighbors kept coming over, thanking us over and over again. We appreciate you getting our property values back up. And so it's a win-win in most cases. Now there's some bad seeds out there, and I know that I try to avoid those, and Antonio does as well. And so we are definitely problem solvers. You want to say that?
Oh, no. I'm good.
Sorry.
I was
Sorry.
thinking
Welcome to
monsters
live
in my
radio.
mind.
Welcome to live radio. One of the things too about our company, and I want to tell you a little bit about us, because this is the Richmond market's a new market for us, and my name's Dwayne Cotton, of course, and we have DwayneCotton.com, and that's how you can, probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. But our company, we actually have a couple companies. One is Build America Construction, and you can find us at BuildAmericaConstruction.com, and our other companies, Build America Properties. And the difference between the two is Build America Construction, we build new homes, we renovate houses, we renovate office buildings. We were talking about that last week. Commercial office buildings, we take care of those. And a little bit of industrial work. And Build America Properties, we basically just buy houses. And if we're going to buy a house from you, then generally that's how we would buy it. And so if you have a need for a renovation contractor to come in and renovate the house that you're currently in, you want to build a new house and you want to talk to someone about some of the different types of building, the latest and the greatest and high energy efficiency, you can talk to me. If you have a commercial building and you want to update the office, the waiting area, you have a restaurant, you want to make this restaurant different than anything around, give me a call.